Welcome back. We're going to create a few more columns to populate this table so that we can actually create some visualization later. Now, there are a couple of things that I do want to actually show you or highlight. Is that this video can be quite long because I'm going to create the columns one by one, step by step. Feel free to accelerate this portion if you find that it's a little bit mundane and boring. But I wanted to show you step by step in a step-by-step manner so that you can actually follow along easily. Right. Okay, let me bring this over so that you can actually see what I'm attempting to do. No, let me just make this smaller. Okay, so we're going to create all of these, okay, separate columns so that we can actually have the data populated for us to create the visualization later. I have made it side by side so that you can actually easily see what I'm doing here. Okay, so you can see the formula as well as what we're actually trying to do here in Power BI. So let's just start with the column. We want to add a new column. Okay, so now we want to create year column. Except this time we're not creating all the new data all together. We're going to refer this to the date that we created before. So year, all right, so we want to actually refer to this column called date. All right, so when you actually type the date, because that's the name of the date, the Power BI is not sure that you're referring to date. You want to use the formula date, or you want to refer to this date column here. Notice that it actually popped up with anything that has the date in it to wait for your further instructions. So in this case, I wanted to refer to the date table, date column. Remember, this table that we're dealing with is called date table. That's the whole table itself, but we wanted to actually look at just the column called date itself. So I need to actually select this, right? Examine the whole formula. Year is the year, bracket, table first, name of the table first, followed by the column that we're interested in. So what this will do is that it will extract the year of the date. So let's just press enter and wait for Power BI to actually generate these data. So notice that it has extracted the year from the actual date itself. This is an extremely powerful tool, especially when you actually do a lot of date manipulation. So if I scroll down, notice that May 2013, the correct year has been extracted. So to visually check through and randomly check through, of course, this is not a very thorough way of checking all the details, but as we can see here, going from 2019 to 2020, the correct year has been extracted. So that's really what we actually wanted to do. So the next one is create another new column. Okay, this time around, we want to know the actual month itself. Okay, so we want to extract the month number, MON, month, and we want to refer to the same date column. So let's pull that over, and notice that January is showed as January. So if we scroll down further, October is shown as October. So these are done correctly as well. This time around, however, we do want it to create another column, but this time around, instead of month showing it in the form of numerical number, we want it to show as text. So now we just use another formula that you haven't come across before. It's called format. What this does is that it notices that it converts a value to text in the specified number format. So let's look at this. So we wanted to actually point to the date again, which is this one here. Double click to select that, and we wanted to show us month, return it in this precise format. Okay, so if you choose M, it will be numerical. If it's MMM, it will be a 3-letter month. information that's being returned. So notice that this 3-letter month. So again, we do scroll down to check. March is shown as 3, or January shown as Jan, 1 is Jan, 12 is December. Good, these are correctly done. Just to show that this can be a bit different. If you change it to a single M, it will show as M. You can, if you change it to, I believe 5, can't remember exactly the actual few, it will show, okay, it's actually meant to be 3. If you show as 3M, you'll notice that the full month name is shown. Okay, so we just want 3. Okay, now that we've done that, what else can we do? We want to know what the actual day of the week. Okay, so this time around we want a numerical value. So we use a new formula once again that you're not familiar with, called weekday. What this does is returns a number from 1 to 7, identifying the day of the week of a date. So weekday, all right, again we want to actually refer to the date, comma. Now there are 3 options here. The week can start on a Monday, which is if you choose 1 here, that's what this is. Sunday is equal to 1. If you choose 2, Monday is 1. If you choose 3, what you have is that Monday is 0. Tuesday becomes 1. So I'm not sure about you, where your country is, depending on your cultural preference. In this case, I'm going to use 2 because Monday is the first day of the week in this part of the world. So I'm going to select this and close the bracket. And voila, what we have now is that January 1st, it's a Friday, or here it denotes as 5. Just to make sure that my understanding is correct, I'm going to create another column. So day of week. This time around, instead of number, I want it to be in text. So again, I'm going to format this, and I'm going to have the date. This time around, I want it to show me date format. So these are formatting that you may not be familiar with, but as you actually do more and more, you will start to get used to these shortcut keys. Press enter once again, so that it actually denotes the Friday, Saturday, the actual text. There's a way to cheat in terms of selecting. Okay, let me come and see if I compare. Okay, you notice that there are these shortcuts. So D stands for day, but it shows the number. MMM represent to you 3-letter of the month itself. 4 M's is the full name of the month. So that's really where you can actually, if you don't remember the notations that I was talking about, this is quite a good place to use as a reference to help you to get a sense and an idea of what are these so-called D 4 M's and what would actually bring back to you. Okay, let's continue on in creating columns. The next one here is the date fraction. Okay, so that's what date FRAC stands for. We want to know the so-called the fraction of the year that's represented by the date itself. So let me just run this by you, so that you can actually get an idea of what it looks like. So year frac, so return the year fractions representing the number of whole days between start date and end date. So let's start with this. We're gonna have start with the beginning of 2010. That's when we started this. And we want to know what our current date is. Date table, let's select this. Okay, and we want the actual date itself. This is another new notations that you're not familiar with. What the year fraction is asking you is the start date, which we have selected is by using the formula date 2010 January 1st. End date is we want to actually extract the so-called the current date. All right, so if I actually just put date underscore table and just put this date as the column, what Power BI will be confused with is that this is a selection of the whole column, so which is this whole column here. But this formula needs a specific date to compare against. So hence the reason why we need to actually use the dot function here, or dot method here, to select the actual date itself. Okay, then the next part is about choosing the basis. 0 is 360 days, or assume 360 days in a year. 1 is actual versus actual. 2 is actual versus 360 days of the year. This is actual versus 365. And the European also have a 360 days convention. So we're going to use the actual to actual. The reason being the number of days in a year fluctuates because of leap year. So you have 365, 365, and some years we have 366. So we just use 1 in our case and close the bracket and close that off. And here what you have here is that, okay, this is day 0, which is 0. Okay, so now the next part is actually a fraction of a year, which is a fraction of 365, which is 0.0027, and then accumulate as we go. So that's really what that date fraction is. Okay, so if I scroll down, this is 2011, so a year later, so it's 1.9 years from the origin or the beginning of this date series here. So if I scroll down further, so 2016 is 6 years later, May 29th is 6.4. So that's really the purpose of this. It tells you cumulatively, or fraction in a date fraction manner, how far we are, or how many fraction of a year we are from the beginning, which is January 1st, 2010. Let's continue to add more columns. We've done the date fracs. We want to actually calculate how many days are there left in a year. So this is an interesting function. Some of us calculate how far away is it from Christmas, or how far away are we, how many days left before, let's just say, the Olympic or our birthday or someone's birthday, or countdown. So that's something that you can use this function for. So days left is equal to the end of year. So in this case, we're actually using specifically until the end of the year. If you want to actually calculate to Christmas or a specific date, then you will have to specify the date. So looking at this, again, we need to cross-reference the date itself, and we also need the actual date itself. So again, don't forget that we are comparing against a specific date, a row, rather than the whole column. And this is end of that year. We want to actually extract the date itself, the specific date. So calculating that, it tells us this is not very useful because it's in the wrong format, so we have to change this to whole number. Yes. Okay, and here we go. So what do you have? You have 364 days left, and on and on it goes. Okay, so whenever you roll over to a new year, that tells you how many days there are left to the new year. So 0 here means it's the last day of the year. So that's pretty much how it works. So essentially this is using this function here and say, look, tell me the date, okay, what day is the end of this year, the date of this specific date, minus today's date. So that gives you the distance or how many days left there are to that year. So that's really how that works. Again, continue on. We want to know a couple of interesting functions, whether this is a workday or not. This workday function doesn't return the holiday, whether this is actually a workday with reference to whether it's a holiday or not. This is actually with reference to whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Those are the workday. So we're using if function, making use of the date tables built-in functionality, which is what we mentioned before. Not this one, the day of week. The day of week, which we actually extracted earlier. Day of the week. Okay, so remember this was the column that we refer to, which is, let me come over. Day of the week, which is this one here, this column here. It's not showing clearly. Let me just close this off. Okay, day of the week. Okay, so recall that 5 is a Friday, 6 is a Saturday, 7 is a Sunday. So in here, fairly quickly, you can actually think about the logic of how to actually write this. So if the number is less than 6, what is less than 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is Monday to Friday. Okay, so if it's less than 6, then that is actually a work day. All right, if it is 6 or 7, then it is a weekend. So that's really you making use of the if function here to separate out whether it is a working day or not. So what we do is that if that statement is true, we put it 1, it is a work day. If statement is false, it is 0, it is not a work day. So press enter and just go over a little bit, then you can see. Okay, so Saturday is not a work day, Sunday is not a work day, Monday is a work day. So that's pretty good. That's the behavior that we wanted to actually possess or exhibit. Final column that we want to create is create a series of random number for each day, which we will actually make use of for, I'll show you or explain to you the purpose later. We want to generate numbers between 1 and 100. Oops, it shouldn't be a full stop, should be a comma. So generate number between 1 and 100 for each day. So again, that I have an extra bracket here that's not very helpful. Okay, there we go. So we have a random number being generated. This could be the temperature of the day, of each day. Of course, temperature doesn't range from 1 to 100. I mean, then you have to change the temperature to a slightly different. This is if you're thinking about temperature in Celsius, then it's probably going to be, depending on your location, it's much more narrower than to 1 to 100. This 1 to 100 could also be the number of I don't know, shooting stars that you observe. So these random numbers is for us to use it for our visualization later. So let me come over here, and I do need to realize one thing is that I did actually make a mistakes in terms of the naming. What I really wanted to actually change it to is actually date of the week. What I have is date of week. So how do we change this? Is this a table or column? This is correct. This is actually a column. So we can use the column tools to change the name, or we can also double click and change it right there. Date of the week. Then that become consistent with this. Day of the week, bracket num, date of the week, bracket text. Alright, I hope that has been useful. This is a fairly lengthy video. Before we close it off, I do want to actually change this, because this number is quite untidy because some are super long, some are super short. So what we will do is that it is right now in the correct format, which is decimal number, but I don't want it to be auto in terms of the number of decimal shown. I want it to be consistent. Call me OCD if you like. I just liked it to show it in such a manner that's easier to view and consistent as well. So that's why we've chosen 3 decimal places. With that, I'm gonna stop here. This is probably a video that you do need to actually watch it a few times, and it is quite heavy in content, but I thought that it's necessary to show you on a step-by-step process on how to create the calendar data, as well as some of the unique functions that you haven't seen before. Some are built in, some are using if functions, some are using the random function that's built in. So this is really a step-by-step process, very, very thorough and fairly in-depth as well, just to actually get you to have a hands-on experience and just to illustrate to you how to actually do this. I hope you have found that useful. Thank you for your patience in watching this. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.